By 2009, the Nintendo DS was one of the most successful consoles ever released, with over 100 million units sold by that year and around 50 million more to go before the end of its life cycle. With the success of The Legend of Zelda Phantom Hourglass on the system, a game that appealed to both old and new fans alike to sell nearly 5 million copies, it was only a matter of time until Nintendo made a sequel. Using the same game engine, touchscreen controlled focused gameplay, and Wind Waker inspired timeline and art style, it took the developers just 2 years to make a game that improved on basically everything over its predecessor, despite selling less than it. It's now time to go full steam ahead into adventure in a new Hyrule with The Legend of Zelda Spirit Tracks. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Pixel Tavern. First off, if you're new here, or if you just haven't already, please consider subscribing to the Pixel Tavern for more videos like this one. I'm now on to the 15th game in the series with Spirit Tracks, which is soon to be out of 21 games thanks to the release of Echoes of Wisdom coming in September. By the time Spirit Tracks had released, I had played several games in the series, so I had a strong idea of what to expect here. But what I didn't expect is to find one of the most enjoyable games in the series for me. Maybe it's because it appealed to my childhood with its use of trains, or it could be because it actually expanded on the lore of Wind Waker, unlike Phantom Hourglass. Or it could just be because that overworld theme is absolutely amazing. Whatever the reason though, a heads up, there is full spoilers ahead. The Legend of Zelda Spirit Tracks first released on 7th of December 2009 in the USA, and within about 2 weeks everywhere else. Here in the UK, it also launched with a special edition in some stores, which is what I bought. This is the first special edition game I ever purchased of any franchise, and as such, I've treasured it ever since. It comes in this big metal tin and with 2 little figures, one of Link and one of Zelda in her phantom form. One particular thing about the boxes for the DS entries is, unlike most UK releases of Zelda games, where it's mostly just a logo with a coloured background, the art here is beautiful. With stunningly bright colours and a perfect art style, it was great to see the UK get the Japanese box art that better showcases the gameplay and the story over the usual American version we normally got. Speaking of the story, Spirit Tracks has one of my favourites in the series. Sure, it's not to the scale of any of the 3D titles, but its somewhat lower stakes and more personal themes I found to be very memorable, and has some of the best characterization of Zelda in the whole franchise. It's not as full of existential dread as, say, Majora's Mask or Link's Awakening, but it manages to blend in some darker tones with this more cartoony world of Wind Waker in a compelling way. It's set around 100 years after the events of Wind Waker. We join a new Link in an entirely new Hyrule, not just in its design, but in its location from a story standpoint as well. This new Hyrule is the land that Link and Zelda found after the King of Hyrule sent them out to find a new world at the end of Wind Waker. There is even one surviving character from that game, still going strong at over 100 years old. It's Nico the Pirate. As with Phantom Hourglass, the story begins with him telling the story of this new world in a picture book style. He tells of a war to seal away a new demon king called Maladus. Tracks known as the Spirit Tracks are spread across the world and used like chains to keep the demon sealed away. In this world, trains are the main form of travel, and as such, the new Link is a train engineer and driver, and he's about to travel to meet Zelda and become a fully certified one. Shortly after meeting though, Link helps her to escape the new Hyrule Castle, as she fears her Chancellor may be up to no good, and that it could be connected to the mysterious disappearance of the Spirit Tracks. Travelling by train, they head to the Tower of Spirits at the centre of this world, which, alongside the Spirit Tracks, keeps Maladus locked away. But before they can reach it, the tracks they are riding on disappear, and the villainous Chancellor Cole shows up in a huge Ganondorf-faced train and separates Zelda's spirit from her body. In order to revive Maladus, he needs her body and powers to do so. However, Zelda's spirit is still able to freely roam the world and joins Link in helping to recover her body and the Spirit Tracks, while also trying to stop Chancellor Cole and another villain named Staven from reviving this new Demon King. This is quite a big opening for a Zelda game, consisting of a good 20 to 30 minutes of mostly story. It came as quite a shock after the brief opening of Phantom Hourglass. Thankfully though, it doesn't drag at all. Even though it's light on gameplay, the story is still fun and compelling and sets Link and Zelda up as companions in a way that works for both the story and the gameplay. Which takes the general style of Phantom Hourglass, but in my opinion, improves on it very well. Firstly, there's the controls. Everything is still controlled in the same way as before, but it's all just that little bit smoother. I'm not sure if there's any actual changes to the controls, bar that you now double tap a direction to roll rather than kind of circling in a corner, but to me, everything just felt more accurate and responsive than before. Unfortunately, it does still have some of the same issues as Phantom Hourglass, and although I forgot to mention it in my last video, the hand cramps do set in during long play sessions just as badly. But I still got along with this control scheme for a majority of my playthrough. However, there is one aspect of the controls that at the best of times I found awkward, and at the worst, I found utterly infuriating. You see, for how well the touchscreen is used on the DS, one of its other core features, the microphone, was often left out. That's probably because it absolutely sucks. Thankfully, Phantom Hourglass didn't use it much, but sadly, it appears the developers wanted to make up for that and gave Spirit Tracks the full microphone treatment by making it a requirement to progress at multiple points. There are 2 items that use it. The Whirlwind item, which is not too bad, but can be a bit of a pain on occasion, as you sometimes need it in a hurry. But the other item is a musical instrument, a regular for the series, and this time, it's the Spirit Flute. It seems simple enough at first. You blow into the microphone and slide the flute across the screen to hit the correct notes. For the songs you use frequently, this isn't a problem, as they're only a few notes long. The issue starts though, when you have to play a song before pretty much every dungeon in the game, where the songs get longer and you have to skip over notes. This is when Spirit Tracks becomes
the 7th circle of hell! Thank you.
You see, not only do you have to blow into the mic on the correct notes, but you have to get the timing right as well. And when you have to skip notes, the DS microphone is simply too inaccurate to pick up on when you start and stop blowing consistently. So after about the halfway point of the story, where the songs get pretty long, they start becoming pure agony to get through. I looked up advice on how to get past these segments, and Reddit is full of commenters stating they have the exact same problem, with some giving up on it entirely. I thought this was just an issue with the Wii U gamepad microphone, as I played it the same way as I did with Phantom Hourglass. But no, it's across DS, 3DS and Wii U, all to the same scale. The final song cuts in midway through the final boss, and it literally took me 45 agonizing minutes to get through. To me, this is possibly Nintendo's most egregious game design ever. Definitely at least within the Zelda series. It was clearly not tested in realistic environments, or was possibly just ignored entirely. The mechanic is simply not a good design choice, and should have just been removed. It's sad to know many players stopped playing because of these sections, because apart from that, Spirit Tracks is fantastic. Such as with the dungeon design. This far outranks Phantom Hourglass in my opinion, and despite keeping the central dungeon idea, it completely fixes all of the issues it had. The dungeons overall are much more complex and difficult than with the previous title, with more fiendish puzzles and combat as well. The overworld dungeons also have much better visual design to them, with each dungeon having a more distinct look, and they better fit in with the theme of the area they are in. They don't exactly push the boundaries of design with just water, fire, snow, sand and forest themes, but nice little touches such as vines or stone pillars, and much better colouring and texture design make them much more memorable than Phantom Hourglass. They don't really come close to the series' heights, but they are still a vast improvement over the previous DS entry. The puzzles themselves are great as well, such as using the boomerang to create paths of ice, creating walls of sand to block boulders and create bridges, or using the whip to cross gaps are all fun gameplay mechanics. Speaking of the items, there's a few on offer here. The usual bombs and arrows return, alongside the perfectly used touchscreen controlled boomerang, but the stars of the show are definitely the whip, which is used frequently throughout for fun enemy encounters and environmental puzzles, the sand wand, which creates some really tricky puzzles later on, and the whirlwind item, which is used well in terms of scenarios, but as I said before, it sadly uses the microphone, so it's a bit annoying to actually use. But overall, it's a strong showing of Zelda items here, even though it only has a few to offer. What about that central dungeon though? Well, first off, unlike Phantom Hourglass, it's actually fun to play, as it brings with it the best puzzles Spirit Tracks has to offer, thanks mostly to the mechanic of using Zelda to possess the phantoms. These enemies return, but but rather than being a nuisance, they are a required tool to get you through each level of the dungeon. Zelda can possess multiple types of phantoms, each with their own unique skill sets and use cases. Once Zelda has possessed a phantom, you move her around by using the touchscreen to draw a path for her to follow. The puzzle design hits a peak with this in the final level of the tower, where you need to switch between each type of phantom regularly in order to progress and battle. By making the phantoms a fun tool, removing the timer mechanic, and most importantly, removing the repeating puzzles by just having a central staircase, the central dungeon becomes a positive mechanic of the game, and is something you can look forward to returning to in your adventure. Lastly on the dungeons is the boss design. Although they aren't quite as memorable visually as Phantom Hourglass, there are still a lot of fun battles here, and perhaps better designed ones too. With highlights including Kragma the Lava Lord, where you battle on a minecart circling its giant body for a weak point, or Staven, where you have to utilise Zelda as a phantom to make openings for attack, and the final fight against the Ganondorf face train and Malladus the Demon King is a very memorable, tense, and fun final battle. Spanning 4 separate phases, you take down the Ganondorf train by taking out its weaponry, followed by fighting Chancellor Cole, who's protecting Zelda's body, while Malladus attempts to control it, and finishing up with 2 phases against a giant demon form of Malladus, who's taken over Cole's body instead. First, you must protect Zelda as she powers up to get ready for the aforementioned agonizing flute scene, before moving on to the final phase of holding Malladus back as Link, while you also control Zelda to shoot arrows in his bag. It's reminiscent of the final battle in Wind Waker, except this time you are controlling both characters. It's a great final battle, and Spirit Tracks continues the honoured tradition of multi-phased final bosses in the Zelda series. Outside of the dungeons is one of the most unique open-world traversal mechanics I've ever played. As you may have guessed by now, you travel by train. This sounds limiting, which in some ways it is, but limitations in games are not always a bad thing, and this is a prime example of that. There are still a lot of tracks available as you progress through the game, and many side quests will open up secret ones that lead to further puzzles and rewards. But that limitation is what makes it so much fun, and importantly, much more detailed than the open ocean in Phantom Hourglass. By limiting the areas players can travel to, Spirit Tracks is able to pack a lot more into each area, not only in the environments, which are clearly more interesting to look at, but also in what you can and must do while driving around. There are more frequent and varied enemies than before, more secrets such as a bunny collecting side quest, and more obstacles to deal with as you travel, meaning you have to pay attention to your surroundings a lot more. One of the best mechanics for me is the somewhat terrifying dart trains. These invincible, evil, railway hoggers will chase you down and try to corner you, meaning you have to plan out your route and pay attention to theirs as you travel, as not only are they faster than you, but one tap from them means instant game over. They also come with this stress-inducing song every time they get close. The train travel to me is just so much more fun than Phantom Hourglass's boat, which was mostly empty space, and it brings with it just such a great sense of adventure and intrigue, aided by the surprisingly strong environmental graphics and one hell of an overworld theme. This may be my favourite in the series. I can't quite decide between this and Wind Waker's. If you haven't heard it already, go check out the fantastic Smash Bros. Ultimate version of the song. It's incredible. Top all of this off with great sound design on the train itself that matches the beat of the song, all accumulating to make driving around such an enjoyable experience. One last thing on the story, the reason it's remained one of my favourites is not only because it continues the legacy of Wind Waker, or because of its strong setup, but because of its characterization of Link and Zelda. Link is of course still silent here, but like in Wind Waker, he's very expressive in his animations and shows his courage in cutscenes as much as he does in the gameplay. Zelda also has the most presence she's had in any game in the series, which is ironic considering she's basically a ghost. She gets a personality here, showing her childish side, but also her serious and brave side. She cowers at rats in dungeons, but also holds back some of the bosses throughout, and shows determination to stop Malladus, while mostly just being desperate to get her body back. Her interactions with others, especially Link, are full of character and show some of her best moments in the series. Outside of the story, Spirit Tracks also has a lot of character elsewhere, Little details such as the train leaning off the tracks as you go around corners at high speeds, picky passengers who demand you blow the whistle when passing signs, or in the side characters, such as the postman who likes to act like a train with every delivery, or with the return of Linebeck as a train parts salesman and seemingly a bit of a con man. Everything in Spirit Tracks is just very energetic and fun throughout. As usual, we end things with the presentation. Graphically, it's surprisingly a big step up from Phantom Hourglass in my opinion, due to better environmental details and texture work that make the game stand out a lot more. The overworld in particular is way more detailed, with mountain ranges, bridges, forests, and 4 different biomes to traverse. And overall, there is more variety in every aspect of the game graphically, and this carries on over to the music as well. I'm going to get all of these names wrong, but here we go. Toru Minagishi returns from Phantom Hourglass, but thankfully, so does Asuka Hayasaki, who worked on Twilight Princess and Four Swords Adventures. A new composer at the time also joins, Manaka Katoaka, and the legendary Koji Kondo returns as well, all working together to make a fantastic soundtrack. Unlike its predecessor, Spirit Tracks has a wide range of songs, with basically entirely new ones across every aspect of the game. There's also context-sensitive songs, such as the Overworld theme, which changes as you speed up and slow down, and variations of it for each quarter of the map. Most of the dungeons also have different songs as well, which gives them much better theming, and overall, this is just a top-tier Zelda soundtrack. It would be incredible to see a Spirit Tracks remake or remaster someday just to get it fully orchestrated. So, overall, how does Spirit Tracks hold up 15 years later? Well, apart from the absolutely horrendous musical instrument side of it, it holds up pretty damn well. This is still my favourite handheld Zelda game. Its theming, its puzzle design, its story and world, and its overall character are all fantastic. Top that off with one of the best presented Nintendo DS games both in graphical terms and in its amazing soundtrack, and you have one of the best Zelda games available. Those Spirit Flute moments are definitely a pain, and if you gave up on the game because of them, I completely understand. But if you can push on through them, you are in for one hell of a ride across a very creative and fun Legend of Zelda. Well, that's the end of the line for Spirit Tracks. This truly is one of the best Zelda games out there for me, and I hope it one day gets a full remake or even a direct sequel. I feel the train travel concept could be taken much further by combining it with horseback riding to make a huge open world with multiple forms of traversal to make a very unique environment. That is the end of the Nintendo DS era though. Next time I'm going back to the Nintendo Wii and back to the start of the Zelda timeline with The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. Released to coincide with the 25th anniversary of the series, this title takes players right back to the beginning of the Zelda lore and creates one of the best stories in the series. It also brings with it full one-to-one motion controls and a unique art style that combines Wind Waker and the darker Twilight Princess style. See you next time for Skyward Sword. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Phil and I'm the creator of the Pixel Tavern. I hope you enjoyed this video and the series so far. If you have, please subscribe to the Pixel Tavern for more videos on Zelda and beyond. Please also click the like button for the video and hit the bell icon to stay notified of any future releases. Beyond that, please leave a comment with your experiences of Spirit Tracks. Did you think this was a step up from Phantom Hourglass? What's your thoughts on the train travel mechanic? And would you want a remake as well? As usual, if you want to see more of my videos, there are more on screen now. Until the next video everyone, thank you very much for watching.